Hello, and a very warm welcome to the Daily Grind here on Latte for Monday, the 6th of October, day one of the international break, and we are so bored already. I'm delighted to be joined by my good friend Rice, who is at Pythag in Boots, gargantuan YouTube channel on BBC, on Sky Sports. Can't keep away from him. Pythag, welcome to the show. How are you?
I'm good. I'm excited to dive into this one. Excited.
Good. I'm really pleased to have you here. Obviously, look, international break, it's not ideal for us. We're just getting into the flow of the Premier League season, but there is a lot to talk about. Game week 7 has gone and passed, and the football is very, very entertaining. Last time we spoke, it was, I think, just after Arsenal had been to Old Trafford. We were talking about Victor Gyökeres and our attacking style. How does it feel? 7 games on the board. You're obviously not an Arsenal fan, but how does it feel to be in and around the world of football and seeing the Barclays back in action?
I think it's been such an intriguing opening segment of the Premier League. I don't want to get too excited, but I genuinely think it could be Arsenal's year. I really do.
He knows his audience.
No. Honestly, it's great timing that you asked me, actually, because I've been so apprehensive when it comes to Arsenal. Not because I don't want them to do well, just because of the sheer fear factor of that. You get so close, always the bridesmaid, never the bride. But this season does feel a little bit different because I've always thought Arsenal are the best team in the league from an off-the-ball perspective. On the ball, I've always thought you're sort of top 2, top 3. But I always felt that for Arsenal to get over the line, they needed to be the top 1 in both instances. I think Liverpool, despite the purchases they've made, they look very dysfunctional. And I've touched upon this with my own colleagues at Pythagoras in Boots, but we think one of the big issues with Liverpool, and we're going to probably do a deeper dive on this, is that because they've brought in a lot of faces, and because the existing faces, especially in attack, let's just say Mo Salah, there's a lot of egos that need to be massaged here. It's almost like a lot of pieces need to be slotted into Bayani slot. Whereas with Arsenal, everything feels very organic. Everything feels very much in synergy. Yes, someone like Gyökeres has come in, and I will touch upon him. I'm sure we will. But from a personality perspective, he looks like he's fitted in like a glove. Like the lads get on well with him. Everyone just looks like they're singing from the same hymn sheet. And there will be bumps in the road, as with any title campaign. But if you've got harmony as a collective and everyone's together, that will get you through those dark moments within a season. And I look at Arsenal and I see that. Whereas when I look at Liverpool, there seems to be a lack of harmony. And I think that could probably be quite a crucial factor in the deciding of this title race.
Well, listen, we're going to talk about all of the big six, as they're traditionally known. We'll start by talking about the Premier League season. A very warm welcome to our channel members, Patreon members, and of course the chat. Forgot to do that at the start. If you are new to these shows, the Daily Grinds, do subscribe if you enjoy the content. Drop a like on the video. Massive help to the channel. Lael says, FK, you've spoiled us so much this year. God bless you. Thank you, man. It's the guests who make the show. It's the chat who makes it interesting. And Forder, thanks so much. My personal Twitter handle, 97,000 of you following me. It's absolutely insane.
Get this guy to 100K. Come on.
Thanks, man. Thanks, Pythag. But I'm very grateful for everyone. And of course, Latte Firm on its way to 30,000 subs, which is going to be amazing as well. V Vlad is in the house. Good evening. Dave's in the house. Andy Love is here. Evening, gentlemen. FK, surely you can't be bored now we're at the top of the table. No, I can't be bored. I'm very excited about what's to come. Let's, I guess, just rejoice in the fact that the Barclays is back. The greatest show of all, these fantastic edits off X. These are just a couple of snaps from the last sort of match days that we've had. We've seen so much excitement, right? So much football being played. We're going to go through the individual sort of big sixes, but the Premier League's back. What's grabbed you, I guess, just sort of headline stuff? Anything really sort of like just grabbed you as like, wow, wasn't expecting this.
Let's talk about the relegation teams. Relegation teams, right? I actually feel this year they've come with a bit more oomph about them in terms of from a tactical perspective. They seem less naive. And they seem more competitive within games. Yes, you're going to get the odd scoreline, which is going to be a big deficit. But I feel like the mentality of these smaller teams, they seem more on it this year. And that always makes for a better league, I feel, because then every game feels like it's going to be a 50, but not 50-50, but there's going to be like a 70-30. Like there's going to be moments where a team, if they're not on their day, they're going to be caught off guard. Whereas I felt last year, there wasn't quite that there was a bigger margin for error, let's just say. And I think this will suit Arsenal more than it will suit other teams, purely because I think you guys, when I'm watching you week in, week out, it always feels like a huge dominance factor with Arsenal. it feels like you are dominating the game, and it's only you yourselves that might cost yourselves by being inefficient in front of goal. Whereas when I look at other big teams, they look like they can be got at. So if you look at, for example, Brentford versus City the other day, that first half, City were utterly dominant.
Mm.
But second half, they look really competitive. Now, Brentford have always historically been competitive, but you would have thought with the change of manager that wouldn't be the case. But he's come in and he's still making them quite competitive within halves of games. So yeah, generally I'd say the lower half teams are impressing me. I think from the upper half of teams, I think barring Arsenal, I do think there's still a little bit of a lack of quality, if that makes sense, in terms of the upper end quality. If you're looking at Arsenal, Liverpool, City from say three years ago, I think Arsenal still maintain that level of quality. And I know people are trying to say, well, City are back, but I think it's more of Haaland's back, and the team it's okay, but it's still not as good as it used to be. And Liverpool are a bit of a mess. And then Chelsea,
Just on that,
yeah.
Pythag, sorry to interrupt, but do you think it's because the gap has narrowed, i.e., the top teams aren't as obviously much better than some of the lower teams? I mean, you look at Bournemouth, what they're doing, absolutely sensational.
Yeah.
You look at Brentford, obviously under Thomas Frank, and now under their new gaffer, but like there are clubs that are really doing very, very surprising things.
I don't buy that argument, purely because I think in most seasons, if you look at the Premier League, there's always going to be that odd team that is, for a lower league team, it's going to be above average in terms of its tactical efficiency or what have you. And then these managers end up gravitating to bigger teams, or there'll always be that case. So I don't really see that as an argument. I always look at the upper end of the teams, and I'm looking pound for pound, looking at the quality of that. So let's just take City, for example. If I look at that midfield, I look at that back line. Is that back line as good as, say, prime Kyle Walker playing at right back? If I look at that midfield, is there prime Rodri holding that midfield? Is there prime Kevin De Bruyne in that midfield? Is there prime David Silva? You look at it pound for pound, and I'm sorry, but that team's just not as good as it was. Whether that means they can't win the league, that's a different question, but it's just not as good as it was. If I look at that Liverpool team, there's no way on hell that's as good as a prime Klopp team in terms of the harmony of that team. So for me, that's a really disingenuous argument if someone comes to me and says, no, the league's the best it's ever been. It's not. But that doesn't take away from whoever wins the league, because Arsenal, if you look at Arsenal, just from a coach's perspective, I look at Arsenal play and I'm always impressed. I'm always super impressed. And I've always said that it would be a great shame if Mikel Arteta doesn't win the league, purely because from a coach, I love him. I look at him from a coach's point of view and I'm inspired by him, and I always have been, just because the amount of control and precision that his teams play with, it's a beautiful thing to watch. And I just hope he does at some stage get over the line. Anyway, I'm getting emotional. I don't know why. I'm not even a bloody Arsenal fan. I think that's just the coach in me. I do love Arteta. I really do.
Well, listen, you and me both, and a lot of the watching fans will be big fans of Mikel. Butterflies and Soul says, hello, chums. Has anyone seen the league table? Well, let's bring that up. 7 games in. There is the Premier League courtesy of PremierLeague.com and Opta. Don't know if you've seen this, man.
No, I've not seen this. This is a very interesting stat. So let's have a look.
This is a very interesting sort of point that I want to share. Opta do this thing where basically they have plotted out which teams have overperformed or underperformed based on individual shot XG in games. And you can see Arsenal, our actual position is second, or it was before this weekend. Our actual position is second, and our expected position was top. So we're sort of underperforming individual shot XG. But you look at United, you look at Chelsea, you look down the list and go down to Newcastle. I mean, you look at Liverpool. I mean, over exceeding. They should be 8th. Based on individual shot XG, but they were top of the league. Forgive me, viewers. This is from our Opta analyst just a few days ago, but I wanted to bring it to your attention because obviously you study the game. Have you been surprised by any of these sort of variances that you see on screen?
I'm not surprised at all. If anything, I think this is a miraculous stat because it's beautiful. It actually paints the picture of what you actually see with your eyes, and I always find that's always one of the best stats that you can get. If you look at Liverpool, that is what all of us think. We've been watching them and thinking they're scraping wins, scraping results. They look a bit all over the place. Weirdly enough, I thought the Chelsea performance was actually quite decent. So I think that one was it's been a bit over-egged in terms of, oh gosh, they're a mess and Chelsea, blah, blah, blah. No, I think that was actually a really tight game. It's just Maresca made the right subs, and I think that changed the game in their favor. But generally, we're probably all in agreement Liverpool have been a bit of a mess, and that table reflects it. And like I even said that before the table, Arsenal look very dominant in each game, and that again matches. looking at you guys, I would have thought you're the best team in the league, to be honest with you. And if someone says second, yeah, right up there. I think if you look at United, interestingly enough, I think in an attacking sense, United have looked pretty decent in terms of when they're getting into territory, in terms of field tilt. They're one of the most dominant teams in the league, but that's also their weakness because they're not being clinical enough with that territory that they've got. And then once they've lost that ball, the structure's not well set up to defend once they've lost the ball high up the pitch. And that's the reason why they find themselves where they are in the league.
Well, we're going to talk about the big six. We'll talk about United, Arsenal, Chelsea, etc. Can we just, before we move away from this content, focus on the teams at the lower end of the table? You can see Wolves holding up the Premier League. West Ham, who have obviously appointed Nuno Espirito Santo, really disappointing start to the season for them. Burnley back in the Premier League. Nottingham Forest, after such a wonderful season last year under Big Ange, really struggling, hovering just above the relegation zone. Brentford, of course, now without Thomas Frank, they're trying to find their ways under their new manager. Leeds obviously come up to the Premier League. What do you make of the bottom sort of 6, 7, 8 teams? Anyone that sort of surprised you? Villa, are they flirting with danger this year?
I think Villa will rise up the table. But at the same time, I do think it's almost an end of a cycle. I think Emery's time there, whether it's this season or the next season, I don't see him staying in the long term purely because I think Emery does this thing where, without being critical of him, I always think he has a ceiling as a manager. So he's a great manager in terms of if he's working with sort of mid-table, sort of Europa level teams, he wins the Europa League or he gets these teams in the Champions League, and then he can't do anything further than that, which, to be fair, it's very hard to do that anyway, because from a financial point of view, it's very difficult to take a team like Aston Villa to then push them beyond, say, getting into the Champions League in the first place. You just can't do it. Even Eddie Howe in Newcastle, he takes them into 4th or 5th, but he can't really take them into the top 3. There's that financial ceiling there. So I think he's kind of maxed out a bit with Villa. And I think this season's about almost just kind of keeping them in the league, getting them back into the top 10. But I think at some stage, his ambition will be, well, I want to do more than this. And I don't think Villa will be able to meet it. So that's my sort of long-term prediction there. I think from a West Ham perspective, I think with Nuno in the team, I think they will go up the league and be a bit more stable, I suspect. I think that some of the teams that made a good start, like a Sunderland, I wouldn't be surprised if they get dragged back down the table, just because I think teams are unaccustomed to their style of play. And perhaps the more they get familiar with them, they can figure them out a little bit. But no, I think an encouraging start from the new teams in the league, the likes of Leeds and stuff. I'm quite happy for them, but it'd be interesting to see how, as the season progresses, can they sustain that. Everton as a team, that really, really impressed me. I just love the style of play under Moyes. I think it's quite entertaining to watch. I think the usage of Grealish, NDI as wingers, it's just, I know it's sort of like old school football, just 2 proper wingers, but it's just, I find it really fun to watch.
Do you know Everton could just do with a really good centre forward? I know they've got Pepe.
Yeah,
but it feels like we've been talking about that for years, right? God. Just get that club a really top centre forward, and I think they do bits. I mean, look, I agree with everything that you said. I think Sunderland have had a fantastic start to this season. I can't see them sustaining it, sadly. As much as I love Granit Xhaka, and as much as they've started really well, I think the club's down towards the bottom. I think West Ham will get out of trouble. Espirito Santo is too good a coach, and they've probably managed to win the jackpot, actually, really, with that one, because Potter was awful. Nottingham Forest, I think they're flirting with danger, but I think they'll probably finish sort of upper, lower half. Villa, I'm with you. I think we've all seen Unai Emery, and how the story sort of ends. And I just wonder if maybe he's reached the end of that sort of fairy tale. Newcastle United expect to climb. United, your own team, I expect them to climb as well. We'll come on to them in a moment. Crystal Palace, I mean, Glasner doing bits. 2 pieces of silverware, unbeaten for the longest run up until this weekend. Thomas Frank with Spurs, I hate to say it, but the old enemy, they're in 3rd place and they've had a really good start to this season. So the jeopardy is there, the excitement is there. Let's take a look at individual clubs. As Alex says, Wolves have been shocking. They have, and I think they're going to be favourites to go down. Let's start with the champions. 3 defeats on the bounce for Arne Slot. Unprecedented territory for him. Some would say that they won the league last year at a canter because of certain decisions and injuries that Arsenal had. They deserve to win the Premier League, because when you are champions, man, you know it. We know it. You're fair and square. You're the best team in the country. They went and added 500 million euros worth of players, Alexander Isak and Hugo Ekitike, the two biggest signings, but they've lost 3 on the bounce. Is the Klopp muscle memory wearing off? Is Arne Slot finally coming up unstuck, or is it just a case of the team hasn't gelled yet? They're in transition, as so many journalists have said today.
I think from an out of possession perspective, that it's a big mess at the moment, and he really needs to find out what's his best out of possession side and then balance it with what's his best in possession side. And it's quite concerning that he's almost having to figure this out through the course of the season, because due to Isak arriving so late in the window, he hasn't really had the preseason games to experiment and find. So it's almost like a brand new project is taking place before our very eyes. And that's quite a dangerous place to be at the start of the season, particularly when you've got an Arsenal team, like I said, they've brought in players, but it's already a machine that's very much well oiled. Whereas this almost feels like lots of different pieces of the jigsaw trying to be just forced into square pegs and round holes. So if we just look at the team from a front four perspective, the one that played against Chelsea, Mo Salah isn't going to press. He's going to look to cheat. Isak doesn't look match fit at the moment, and I don't think Isak was ever a cardio monster that could week in, week out press, because his body tends to break down. Gakpo can kind of press, but then Szoboszlai was having to almost play as a centre forward out of possession to do the pressing for all these players, and then he got tired, and there's no surprise he's having to do the work of almost 3 players. So then you look at that front four, and then you think, well, what about Ekitike? Now, Ekitike can press. I think he's got the work rate to actually press. But then you've brought a £150 million striker. For me, it just didn't make any sense why once they brought Ekitike, they went in for Isak. I would have just picked one out of the two, and then you don't bring in 2 first team strikers. That never makes any sense. I know people will say, well, it's great, we've got depth, but no, you've got to think about the psychology of a player. If you're bringing in, let's just say your number one striker is Isak, your secondary striker needs to be a guy who's happy to sort of be on the bench. You never openly say, well, you got to go on the bench, but you've got to almost anticipate that this player will be comfortable being a bench player and being rotated in. So let's just say keeping hold of a Darwin Núñez or whatever would have made more sense. And then you bring in an Isak, then bringing in 2 sort of alpha male strikers, because they're just going to butt heads, and it just creates a man management issue. So that's an issue they've got. Defensively, Konate is a mess at the moment. So I don't know where his head is at the moment, but he's playing with very little
Madrid.
Well,
he's learning Spanish, mate. That's what he's doing. He's on the Duolingo at half time.
Well, now that Saliba's confirmed for Arsenal, it probably looks like Konate is the one that they want. But do they want him in this form? Is the question. So that's a bit of a mess at the moment in terms of the back line. And you brought in Frimpong to be your starter fullback, but I think I already said in my analysis on Frimpong, he's a wing back. He's not a winger. He's not a fullback. He's a wing back. He's a very specific player. You play with a back 5 system, then he will work. But if you're playing him in a back 4, defensively, he's not going to be good enough. And if you play him as a right mid in replacement of Salah, he's not going to be good in that situation either, because there's a difference between as a wing back picking up the ball and joining in with the attack versus a winger who's just already high up and having to face a settled defense and having to make go 1-on-1 against a player from a standing start. It's very different. So I think Slot's kind of messed up with that signing as well. So that doesn't make any sense. So yeah, sorry.
But I was just saying, it looks like he's got his work cut out. I mean, the last 2 defeats, Crystal Palace and, of course, Chelsea at the weekend. The next 5, Pythag, Manchester United is the next game, the first game, and that's at Anfield after the international break. They then go away to Brentford. They then play Villa at home, who can be hit and miss, Manchester City away, and then Nottingham Forest at home. The games are going to come thick and fast, and Arne Slot's got to figure himself out. And I think I agree with you. I think Isak and Ekitike, I like the way you describe them as both sort of alpha males, alpha strikers. You've seen that with Ekitike, sort of, media stuff that you've seen him. So, like, he's very sure of himself, very confident, the whole sort of shirt up, celebrating. Isak is Isak. And it did surprise me, because Luis Diaz was a left wide player. Jota could play along the front 3. And of course, very sad story about Diogo Jota over the summer. And Darwin Núñez was that sort of B striker, the backup. So the fact that they've got these 2 heavyweights, unless they change formation and go with a 2 and Verts in behind, maybe go sort of diamond in midfield, I don't know. Like, that's something he's Have you lost me? Are you still there?
I'm still here, but you've frozen on my screen. Well, no,
Can
you're
you?
moving now. You're moving now.
Okay, good. I don't
Yeah,
know what happened there. My
yeah.
sincerest apologies. All I was
No, no,
saying
it's
was
fine. I just thought you'd had an overdosage of Botox or something because you look so.
No, I completely agree with you about Isak and Ekatike, and I think Arnie
Yeah,
Slot has basically got work to do. Let's move away from Liverpool. Maybe it's the
cool.
Liverpool fans trying to bug Latte Firm. Let's talk about what have we got here? What is going on? It's all completely frozen. Let's talk about the old enemy, Spurs. I hate to have the chicken thing on screen, but there we are. Thomas Frank is doing a very good job. What are you made of his first few games in charge at Spurs?
I think the that graphic you had before kind of tells the story a little bit. I think the results have almost been better than the performances at times, weirdly enough. I think with Spurs, there's still a bit of surgery to be done. I think Thomas Frank still needs to figure out what type of coach he wants to be when you're managing a big team. And I think it's something that we saw with Nuno when he went to Spurs, where suddenly his brand of football didn't make sense for a bigger club. And I'm not saying Frank is going to have that level of difficulty, but I think Frank does need to almost tweak the balance of how he plays football to be a little bit more attacking. Because when you're in charge of a bigger club, it generally pays well to be a bit more front foot in terms of your style. In terms of where I think Spurs' weaknesses are a little bit, I think obviously the centre forward position. I think they need a more clinical, proper elite level centre forward. I think
Mhm.
Richarlison's done a great job for him so far, but he's not the end answer. And I don't think Solanke long term is going to be good enough either. I think there's a lot of emphasis on Kudus to provide the goods. So it's almost like if you keep Kudus quiet, it puts so much pressure on the rest of the team to have to produce the goods. And I think, but on paper, what I really like, I do like that back line. I like Paro. I like the centre backs. I like Jed Spence. I like Udogi. There's a lot of talent within this team. I think the other thing is he's banking on players like Bergvall to come good, and I think that's the right strategy. But it also means that there's going to be that inexperience factor within that midfield. So I wouldn't judge Spurs on this season, but what I would judge is the performance levels. And from what I've seen, when they're playing well, they look good. They just need to be a bit more consistent. And I think this you're going to have a bit of patience, I think, with Frank. I think this season, I wouldn't even look at this season from a results perspective. If they get results, that's a bonus. What I'm looking for is a style and structure of play. Overall, I'd say I'm positive about Frank. But having said that, I want to see them push even more levels in terms of the quality of their play because too many games are becoming little bits of firefights. Like when they were playing in the Champions League, you know, that team was all over them like a rash, and they just about got themselves back into that game, which is good. Resilience is there, but I think from Frank's perspective, long term, he's gonna have to control these games a lot better and to a higher level.
Do you think they'll finish top four?
Oof, I would probably edge towards no, but I think I wouldn't be surprised if they're in the top six.
Yeah,
So
look,
I think they're good enough to knock on the door squad wise. I do think that, but it's a very competitive. As much as I was criticizing the quality of the league, I do think there's a squeeze between like that 2 to 7 or whatever. There's a lot of teams that are like round about a similar level. If they're getting a good run, and anything could happen. So I see them within that pool of teams.
Interesting. Let's move away from Spurs as quickly as we can. 250 Premier League wins for Pep Guardiola this weekend. You talked about Erling Haaland. They've had a really good start, very underrated start to the Premier League season, Pythag. I mean, look, the question, Pep is definitely back. Are City back? Are they serious title contenders for you?
I think City are title contenders. Are City back in terms of where they were back in the day? No, not for me. But are they good enough to win this league? Yes, I think so. Purely because sometimes you have a match winning maverick that's like so good he can drag a team to a title on his own. And sadly, I don't want to say this on an Arsenal podcast, but like someone like Van Persie for United was that player for us. You look at Mo Salah last season. I think he was a very pivotal figure for Liverpool in a lot of key games where he almost took the game by the scruff of the neck, and he would just get them the 3 points and get them over the line. Haaland's doing that for City. Now, in terms of City's overall general play, I think it's still within the top three teams in the league. Like I said, I put Arsenal first, but I think City still have that model of play which is very dominant, and so that alone will always keep them within that title hunt. It's all about whether there's enough hunger in the team and if there's enough defensive stability within the team. And I think so far from what I've seen, they're all right. They're not too bad, but they're definitely not as clinical in their defensive work as they were previously. So there will be more firefight moments, I think, with this City team than there was previously. But it's all about, do they have the desire to get through those moments? I think they can't just fully rely on Haaland every game. Some other players are going to have to step up. Now, from a Phil Foden perspective, he looks a little bit sharper than last season, a little bit more hungrier. But I still want to see him be a bit more direct, a bit more impactful, and stamp his personality on games. I think if he can have a stellar season, that could be enough to push them over the line. I think he's a key factor, Foden's form.
Wow. I mean, look, you mentioned Erling Haaland. Jamie Carragher last night, I think on the Sunday night sort of Premier League show that they're doing new after the games, he said that he is the best centre forward the Premier League's ever seen. Would you agree with that?
I probably would. Yeah. I mean, I'm looking back on the classic strikers of the day. Now, if I look at the 90s, your Alan Shearers, who I rate very highly, but I rate Haaland higher than Shearer.
Wow.
Then when I look at Ruud van Nistelrooy, I rate Haaland higher than Ruud, and I'm a United fan, and I loved Ruud. Henry is probably the only forward I'd have ahead of a Haaland just because he was so complete. So I'd probably have Henry first. I'd have a Haaland second. But then in terms of sheer clinicality, big match impact, Haaland still got the rest of his career to go to potentially push himself ahead of an Henry. I think in terms of sheer goal for it, I think I'm going Haaland in terms of just numbers. But I think range of goals, general link-up play, everything that you'd want from a centre forward, I just think Henry was phenomenal. So I'm going to
this
go
is
Henry
interesting. I agree with you, and I appreciate
Yeah.
the sentiment on Thierry Henry. I think for me, Thierry Henry is the best footballer I've seen in the Premier League, and obviously he was a centre forward for us. I think I'm not sure Erling Haaland has peaked or hit the heights that Robin van Persie did at his best, that Henry did at his best, that I think even Shearer had one season where he was unbelievable. Blackburn, 2 seasons, Blackburn Rovers and Newcastle. Sergio Aguero at his very best. I think there was a season where he scored like 37, 38 goals in all competitions for them. He was unbelievable. So I think Erling Haaland is an absolute machine. I get it. But like what I saw those three players, just to name examples, do at their very peak, they were unplayable. And they did so much more for the team than just scoring goals. I know that's
I think in terms of sheer talent level, I can't even disagree with you. I agree with you. I just think when I look at Haaland, I can envisage him banging in goal after goal for just the next 5, 6, 7 years. And I can also see him moving on from City, going to a Real Madrid or going to another big club and just winning Champions Leagues. And I think that legacy I can envisage for him, I think that will take him to become, in hindsight, one of the best strikers that the Premier League ever had. I think he's got such a mentality where his ambition and hunger will take him to the very, very top. And when I look at someone like Shearer, as much as I loved Shearer, the fact that he chose to stay at Newcastle for his entire, obviously he started at Blackburn, but Southampton, Blackburn, what have you. But I don't think Haaland would be satisfied with that. I think Haaland, his ego will want to see him in the biggest games and what have you. And I think that marker there is of a player, I think long term, he's going to want to push himself into one of the goal strikers, like top 10 of all time sort of thing.
I think he's going to break the Premier League goal scoring record, and I think he'll hopefully go to Madrid or something. Let's move away from Manchester City. So, look, real title contenders for you. I'm going to ask you to name your team to win the title at the end of the show, but let's just focus very quickly on Chelsea, who have an incredible squad. Really, really spoilt for talent, Maresca, and but of course they've got so many injuries. But a great victory over Liverpool over the weekend. How serious are Chelsea, do you think?
I don't see them as title contenders, but they're a top 4 team, I think, and they should be a top 4 team. I think anything less than top 4 is a disappointment for that squad. I get that they've got injuries, but I think they've got a good model of play. I think in terms of the winger depth, they've got so many match winners, game changers that they can bring off the bench. I think from a striker perspective, they've got variety. Like I think Delap, Pedro, Gui, that's a good trio of centre forwards. Now, I'm not saying either one of them is a title winning level centre forward, but I think as a collective, is it good enough to get you into a Champions League spot? 100%. As a coach, I'd like to have that trio if I was chasing top four. Midfield wise, I think Caicedo is arguably the best midfielder in the league, if not definitely top three midfielder within the league from a
Yeah,
central mid.
I was amazed Gary Neville said that.
What did Gary Neville
Amazed.
say?
I think Gary Neville said that Caicedo for him was the best Premier League midfielder in the Premier League.
I
I mean,
think
like
it's a
Rodri's
bold
better,
statement.
Rice is better. Caicedo's good. I mean, he's top, but he's not the best.
See, I don't have any issue with people saying he's the best because I think he's a fantastic player purely because he's great on the ball and he's great off the ball. And I think from what more can you ask for a CM? And then if he's banging in long ranges like that, and he's almost got very little help because when I look at Arsenal, I see that the midfield structure is far better than what I see at Chelsea. Like, for example, every player seems to have a good support network. So what I'd say, so for example, Zubimendi has Rice doing a lot of hard work for him, blah, blah, blah. And then Rice has Zubimendi helping him out with the build-up phase. And then they've got a creator in front of them in Odegaard or what have you, who's relatively quite hardworking for an attacking midfielder. And now they've got Eze on top of that as well, right? So if you just look at that midfield structure of Arsenal, it's very, very well set up. And then they've got great defense behind them. So I'm not saying it's easy to look good there, but I'm just saying you've got more support there. When I look at Chelsea, I'm like flipping. I'm looking at Caicedo. He's almost on his ones there because Enzo's got very little mobility from a tracking back perspective. So Caicedo has to do a hell of a lot of work in terms of the build-up phase. Like, unless that fullback's inverting well, Caicedo's on his own there in terms of the build-up phase. I don't necessarily think it's even his best asset. I think Lavia is probably their best first receiver in the 6 role. So he's got a lot of stuff to do. And then on top of that, if he's producing long-range goals and what have you, like, for me, he's definitely within that top 5 centre mids in the league. I don't think you can say hand on heart he's the best midfielder in the league just because it's so early into the season. Let's see him try and win something first. Okay, they won the Club World Cup, but let's just see what they do in the league first. But he's definitely up there, really, really up there. And I wouldn't be surprised if he walks into I know Barcelona can't afford him, but he could walk into a Barcelona, he could walk into a Real Madrid, and he would not look out of place. I think Caicedo's got a high ceiling as a mid.
433 says Rodri. Let's be fair. Where do you think Chelsea end up?
If he was fit, yeah.
Of course. Where do you think Chelsea end up?
I think top 4. I would probably say 4th.
So hang on a second. So I'm assuming you think Arsenal, Liverpool, top 2?
I think Liverpool sort themselves out to a degree to get themselves within the top 3.
4. Okay. Yeah. So Arsenal. So in no particular order, because I'll ask you the order at the end. Yeah. Arsenal, Liverpool, City in the top 3, and Chelsea squeezing in at 4th. So that means no Spurs, no Newcastle. Okay, and certainly not Manchester United, which is where we're going to go next. More lives than a cat. Ruben Amorim. Come on, man, this is going to be painful for you. But we all saw the night in Grimsby. We've all seen him fidgeting, looking down on the touchline, sometimes looking hopeless, sometimes looking so excited, relieved almost to get a win. Really important win for you guys over the weekend against Sunderland. Is he the right guy? What do you make of the first few weeks of this new season?
I don't think he's the right guy. And the reason why I say that is I think the more I've delved deep, it was bugging me. I was trying to figure out what is wrong with this United side, right? Because statistically, we were looking quite good, but then the results weren't quite matching that. And then when you watch us on the eye test, you can see that we're actually not that good. So if I'm looking at the Sunderland game, right, we've won 2-0. Now, I watched that game on a speed run just because I didn't have time. So I just watched it back. And I thought we still looked very chaotic. Like, we ended up winning the game, but at times Sunderland had, they were dominating the possession. And then for us to let a relegation team come to Old Trafford and almost have quite a bit of the ball in phases of play and look quite dangerous and putting crosses into the box, I don't think that's good enough. Like, I'm sorry, but yeah, we've won 2-0. But I'm looking at the long-term picture. I'm not seeing that level of elite quality that's going to take us to the promised land again. And the big issue with Amorim is that midfield. Now, I've got a bunch of at my daughter's football, a lot of United fans that I talk to, and they were so happy that Bruno and Casemiro played so well. And I was like, lads, it's Sunderland. Like, that midfield pairing is not going to take us anywhere. Like it's like banging my head against a brick wall. Like, it's always these highs and then these lows. Like, and I'm just like, I still don't think that United fans were understanding enough about how important the midfield area of the pitch is. You can't have a Casemiro if you're playing high territory football. So you're looking to be front foot in the opposition's half. If you lose that ball, which teams play high front foot football? Your Arsenals, your Man Cities, your Liverpools. Why are they so effective at it? Because they suffocate teams. They keep the teams in that half. So even if they lose it, they either win the ball back quickly, or if that ball does come through, they can sweep you up easily. The reason why I say that is like Arsenal. Who's going to get that ball over a Timber's head? Well, let's just say they did manage to. You got Saliba, who's a Rolls Royce, and the other side, you've got Gabriel, right? And then you've got guys like Declan Rice, etc. You know, it's athletes everywhere, loads of pitch coverage. You look at Liverpool at their best, Konate is going to usually should eat up that right hand side if a ball goes over the top. Van Dijk's a Rolls Royce as well. You look at City back in the day, they had Kyle Walker. Anyway, you look at Man United, and I'm sorry, if that ball goes over the top of a Maguire, he's not going to be able to run back and clear it. He's going to be done for pace. You look at the midfield area, Casemiro's having to cover that entire section. Let's just say Bruno's gone out of position. Now suddenly there's one man in midfield, and that's Casemiro, who's 33, but plays like an 80-year-old on a bad day. So, and the fact that Amorim hasn't looked to fix that throughout this entire tenure, for me, that's a massive red flag. And I think you will see, there will constantly be these results where, oh, we've done well this week and let's give Amorim another chance. And then there'll be that big crash that happens. And eventually they'll be like, nah, no more.
It's very unpredictable. Dare I suggest, without being too cheeky and disrespectful, but do you think you'll finish top half this year?
I'd be shocked if we didn't, purely because I think in terms of the quality of players that he's brought in, it should be top 10. How can he not be top 10 with like Mbumo's been a good signing. Like, you watch him, he's playing well. I think Seshko's beginning to score a few goals. Like, I think you know, the likes of Yaro, Delict are doing quite well. I think Lemons, I can't envisage how he's going to be worse than Onana. And I think if as long as he plays Ahmad wing back, then I think we look quite fluid going forwards when Ahmad's playing wing back, and we look quite good going forwards. So we should beat the smaller teams if an Ahmad is playing at right wing back. So I think based on that, I still think they should be within the top 10. They should even be targeting a Europa place, but definitely not top 4 for me.
No. No, not at all. I think you're miles off. It's really it's really easy, obviously, as an Arsenal fan watching United sort of fail miserably. But sometimes I look at this guy on the touchline and I don't think he's inspiring anyone in that dressing room. I think he has a real challenge around communication and clarity in terms of his messaging. I think he comes across quite nervous and quite shy and quite weak, and it's only a matter of time. United, it's a big club, too big a club to sort of let this guy get away with it. And I think he's just not the right guy. But long may it continue as an Arsenal fan. Let's round up the show and get your thoughts on Mikel. I mean, look, I've saved Arsenal till last. A really positive start to the season, as you said at the start of the show. We have an amazing squad, and this is probably the best squad that Mikel Arteta and Arsenal have had in recent years, of course, to be fair. What's the ceiling for this squad, Rice? Are we gonna do it this year? Do you fancy Arteta to lead Arsenal to the title?
I think the ceiling is obviously winning the title. To be honest with you, you've always been knocking on the door of the title, so it shouldn't be a surprise that the ceiling is a title win. For me, the more interesting question is the Champions League. Like, what's your ceiling in that? Because you got to semi-final last year. Have you made enough of the right signings to push you over the league in the Champions League? For me, I'm not quite sure on that one, purely because I think there's quite a few good teams in Europe, And when I look at the fluidity of their attacking play and the individual talent level within the final third, I think there's some teams that I rate better than Arsenal. But I think what could get you over the line in those games is your off the ball structure and the commitment to the cause that could actually get you over the line. But I'd probably say you're probably one. We'll have a different video on this, but probably 1 or 2 signings off that. But in terms of this league, Premier League, you guys should be you guys should be winning the league. Like it should be a disappointment if you don't win the league or get an FA Cup, like a double type of season. Like that's the sort of, or even a mini treble. Like, you know what I mean? Like you're definitely good enough to do that because of the depth of the squad. I think obviously the importance is keeping key players fit, but there is depth now. So even if an Odegaard's out, you've got Eze there, and I was so gutted to see that Odegaard and Eze start the same game, and then you know
Yeah.
we don't get to see it in full flow. But credit to Mikel, you know, like in terms of he actually did it. Like who'd have thought he's going to put 2 really attacking players into the midfield? So that for me shows signs that Mikel's had enough of having the handbrake on. Maybe he's ready to just go for it.
Well,
Yeah.
it's funny because in 22-23, when we went on that unexpected title challenge, and it was such an amazing year, so exciting for Arsenal fans, you know, week after week, hunting down City, keeping up with them, and then, of course, losing it right at the death. And then all of a sudden, Mikel's almost suffering from PTSD and just stacked defense. You know, we've got this Ministry of Defense now, 6 or 7 top players that could probably play for most teams in the Premier League and maybe even across Europe. And it feels like with the late addition of Eze, he's kind of realized actually we need to go hard and we need to attack. And Victor Gyökeres, obviously there, Noni Madueke is there. We talked about it in the summer, how exciting that's going to be. Nathan says 3 goals conceded, and we're in October. Just 3 goals, Rice, in all 11, 12 games that we played this season. One was an extraordinary free kick at Anfield. The other was an Erling Haaland getaway, and he's, of course, inevitable. And the other was a corner against Newcastle, against a giant who's like, 8 foot plus. I mean, that's not bad going. And West Ham this weekend couldn't lay a shot on us. Like,
No, you were so
what?
dominant in that game.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Like what he's created, this defensive monster. And if we can get, and I know it's a big if, but if Victor Gyökeres, I know you're a big fan of him, if he can start, motoring with the goals, if Noni Madueke, once he's back from injury, such an unfortunate injury, Saka looks like he's being back to his best. Trossard and Martinelli, between them somehow, we're sort of just trickling along on that left-hand side. Maybe Antoine Semenyo. I'm going to start the Antoine Semenyo to Arsenal
mate.
campaign.
Come on, let's
I
get
did
into
it
the
this
Gunners,
weekend.
man. You know, I had a
Oh,
video on
mate.
him ready to go, like when the transfer window was
You what?
back
You
in.
want to see him at Arsenal?
I'd love to see him at Arsenal. To be fair, I'd love to see him at any top team. I think Semenyo's a Champions League player in the making.
Mate, he's so good.
I think
He's
such a
so
good
good.
player. He'd be
He's
great,
so
man.
good.
Honestly, he suits Arsenal. I think he does suit Arsenal.
He's literally all we need on that left-hand side.
Honestly, I have to agree
Physical
with you.
dynamism,
Yeah,
ball
yeah.
carrying, explosive speed.
Can you
off
imagine
the
him and
ball,
Eze
monster.
down that inside left?
Oh my
That would
God.
be bloody hell. That would be so like a powerhouse mixed with flair. Like, geez.
It's got to be the one that we
Scary.
do.
That's
Oh,
scary,
wow.
actually. But yeah, sorry, one thing we didn't touch upon that
Go on.
I'm really interested about Mikel is the little tweaks we asked for in that midfield in terms of getting left footers in the right place, getting right footers in the
Yeah.
right place. And we're starting to see that there's been certain games where he's put Odegaard on like in that left-sided position. We've seen Rice move out to the right side. And to the people who don't watch Arsenal that deeply and are not our fans, they're probably looking at it thinking, does this even make a difference? But when you're so into Arsenal, like I'm sure all of you are, but as a tactician, like I'm always looking at that. I'm like, yes, like he's finally doing it. Like he's making those little adjustments within the game where these players are making the right type of overlap and stuff like that. We've even seen Timber get forward quite effectively. I feel like Timber's it always feels like he's taking his game to new heights. Like it's almost like defending's become so easy for him. He's like, let me show you what I'm capable of in my Ajax days. And if you watch Timber at Ajax, mate, he's a absolute baller. Like you'd see him in CDM, you'd see him in whatever, and he looks comfortable in any position on the pitch. So if he starts to be a bit more expressive in terms of his crossing, in terms of his all of that sort of stuff, then it takes the pressure off the winger. So suddenly Saka won't have to work as hard anymore because Timber's doing the heavy lifting going forward. So all these little marginal gains, that could be enough because if the defensive structure is that good, these little marginal gains everywhere across the pitch from an attacking perspective could be enough. And you don't even need Gyökeres to be absolutely at the races. As long as he just keeps improving enough to the point where against smaller teams, He's pushing them out of the way. He's getting his finishes off. That overall could be the collective improvement that could take Arsenal over the line.
Indy says Semenyo, Gyökeres, and Saka. It would be scary, but not for us. With Ezra in behind and Odegaard. Oh my god!
Yeah.
Mikhail, get it done. Hand of Arsenal's in the chat. Just send that message to Andrea Burt and get it done. Honestly, wow, what a prospect. I'm in love with the boy. I'm all aboard the Antoine Semenyo train. And who knows if there's a few pennies lying around the bottom of the piggy bank in January? Who knows? So listen, I got to ask you before we go. What is your order then for the top three? You've said Chelsea will scrape into fourth. Go third, second, first.
This is really, really tough. I think at the moment I'm going to have to go Liverpool. Oh, this is really tough. I know who my first is.
Obviously, it's October the 6th, right? We get it. We're not going to hold you to it. We're not that sort of channel. But
I'll go at the moment, based on what I'm seeing at the moment. I wouldn't be surprised if it's Liverpool third, City second, and Arsenal first. That's probably where we're at the moment.
Could you imagine?
Yeah. And by the way, this is probably the first ever season where I've said that. So my team used to always do predictions after the transfer window ended, and the latest we'd ever do is game week 10. And I don't think I've ever put Arsenal first, ever. So this is the first time where I'm probably got Arsenal first, which is strange. I don't usually do that, but for this one, I'm feeling it a bit different.
Well, I hope you're right. Honestly, for my sanity, man, I've been waiting. I've lost all my hair. I am ready for this title-winning season, man. AP just shouting, "Let's get Semenyo in jam with the old eye emojis." That would be tremendous. Oh, we've lost the internet again. Is it me? Is it Pythag? Is it all of us? Can you guys see us? AP says league and trophies will be ours. Oh wow, StreamYard is absolutely gone. Okay, listen, I think we're going to have to end it there. We've been going long enough. My apologies. Sorry if you guys cannot see Pythag. We're going to leave it there. Do check him out. He is available at Pythag in Boots. Hope you guys have enjoyed tonight's show. Very different, nothing to do with Arsenal. I thought, it's international break. Let's just cover the other teams and see what they're up to. Hand of Arsenal says, shout out FK, smash the like button. Thank you so much. Hundreds of you watching live on YouTube right now. If you've enjoyed the content, do subscribe to the channel and hit like before you go. It's a massive help to the channel. Mike Jones says Arsenal 1, Manchester City 2, Liverpool 3. Reggie says Arsenal will win the league, City to finish second, Liverpool third, and Chelsea fourth. Nathan says he's never seen us win it. Oh, you're so lucky to be so young. Dan says, FK, if we win it this year, the cannon tattooed on your head. I mean, it would be the perfect place to do that. AP says Arsenal, City, and Liverpool. Pythag is the GOAT. Yeah, no, I can't. For some reason, I can't seem to add him in. I think this is to do with StreamYard. Maybe, don't know. Who knows? I can see him in the background, but it's not letting me add you in, man. D-Day Spring says quadruple. Gaming since 2010 says good show to FK, Andy Love as well. Thank you so much for joining. Really appreciate it. Do check him out. Pythag in Boots. Do follow Latte FM on socials. We'll be back tomorrow with some sort of a show. We will be back tomorrow with Raymond from Red Action Gooners. We'll be talking about the match atmosphere. We'll be talking about that tifo from last season and why tickets are unsold and the impact that tourists are having because they seem to get all the blame. And of course, the fixtures, La Liga and Serie A, are being played overseas in Australia and America. I wonder if that's on its way next to the Premier League. We're going to leave it there. Look after yourselves. Have a lovely day tomorrow. Enjoy whatever it is that you do, work, studying, university, school, whatever it might be. Look after yourselves. Take care. Bye for now.